Hey everyone, Andrew back again and welcome to another video. And for today's video I'm here to do a video response to Tony, Horror and Todge, who was kind enough to tag me in this one. So Tony, thank you for the tag, I appreciate it. And I'm sure you all know who Tony is by now, but if not, I will leave a link in the description box below, so please head on over and check him out. Anyway, with that being said, as you can tell from the title, 100 years in horror, and I'm here to talk about my favourite horror movie from each of the decades. However, I will not be doing from 1920 to 1950 for the simple reason is that I am honestly not a fan of the old classic horror movies. I'm just not. I really struggle to get into them, and honestly, besides watching a few of the Universal monster movies and a couple of the older Hammer films, I haven't really seen a lot either. So I will be cheating a little bit and doing from 1960 onwards because I definitely still wanted to participate in this one, so apologies for that. But anyway, with that being said, let's get into it. So this was tricky. Obviously, picking one film from a decade is extremely hard, but here's what I've come up with. So, to kick things off, from 1960, we have the original Psycho. Not much to say about this film. In my opinion, easily the best horror film from the 1960s for sure, and this is really where slashers, my favourite horror genre, started, honestly. One of the very first and early slasher films. Absolute classic film, still holds up extremely well to this day, so that is Psycho. I'm sure this is going to be no surprise to anyone. From the 70s, we have Halloween from 1978. Now, while a lot of you may think this was a no-brainer, and yes it was, this was tough though, because it was actually honestly between this and Alien. But I had to go with this one for several reasons. Not only is it my favourite horror film of all time, it's extremely influential. Especially in terms of the slasher genre. This is where slashers took a lot of inspiration from, especially going into the 80s, and yeah, absolutely phenomenal film. I don't really need to say anything more about Halloween. Now on to the 80s, and this was pretty tough. But I've decided to go with Bad Taste from 1987 for several reasons. One, I think this captures what low budget 80s horror filmmaking was all about. I've talked about this film several times. I absolutely love it. It's, in my opinion, still Peter Jackson's best movie for me personally. And yeah, I just love everything that this movie is about. It captures a lot of great genres into one. It nails the comedy elements, it nails the horror, we have sci-fi, splatter, and this was all done on an extremely low budget with Peter Jackson and a handful of his friends, and he did all the effects and props himself in his back garden shed. I don't know, this is just a damn impressive film. It took a while to make, but yeah, in my opinion, this is just an exceptional movie from the 80s, and yeah, it captures everything that I love about homegrown horror, to be honest. So yeah, that's Bad Taste. The 90s, again, a lot of great horror movies were released in that decade, but I had to go with Child's Play from 1990. This is my favourite movie within the Child's Play franchise, and probably my favourite horror sequel, to be completely honest. Yeah, this movie is fantastic. So that is Child's Play 2. Now, moving on to the 2000s, again a pretty tough decade because a lot of great horror movies were released, but I wanted to show some love to Australia and go with Wolf Creek from 2005 for quite a few reasons. One, this is a fantastic horror film, there's no doubt about that. But this is the movie that really put Australia on the map in terms of horror, and yeah, it really opened the world up to what Australia could do in terms of making a fantastic horror film. And then after this one, a lot of great horror films came out of Australia, which was great to see. But yeah, this definitely put Australia on the map in terms of horror, and yeah, showed the rest of the world that we were pretty serious when it came to being able to make a decent horror film. So Wolf Creek is fantastic. If you guys have never heard of this one, I highly recommend it, obviously. But yeah, this is based off a real life crime case here within Australia. The guy was called Ivan Milat. He is now dead, but yeah, he kidnapped and killed off backpackers over several years, and he was eventually caught. And yeah, this movie is loosely based around that, and it's pretty accurate in a lot of aspects. John Jarratt plays Mick Taylor, who has now become a classic Australian horror icon, and he is fantastic in this movie. Very, very menacing, and he still has, in my opinion, the most creepiest laugh in all of cinema. But yeah, this is a fantastic film. So that is Wolf Creek. Heading into the 2010s, again a pretty tough decade to just pick one film, but again I'm going to have to show some love to Australia here and go with Hounds of Love. In the 2010s, this honestly is my favourite horror film, and for a lot of reasons. Again, it's another fantastic entry within the Australian horror category, and this is also based loosely off a real crime case as well, and Australia seem to nail it when it comes to those sort of movies. A couple of others are Snowtown, and then the recently released from last year, Nitram, and they were fantastic too. But yeah, Hounds of Love, it's based off a case of a couple over in Perth in the 80s called the Burnies, a husband and wife team, and they would basically kidnap young women off the street, sexually assault them, and then kill them off. And there were quite a few victims, and this movie essentially is loosely based on the final victim, the survivor, the one that got away and eventually got the couple arrested. This movie is fantastic, especially in terms of the acting and characters. I don't think I've ever been this invested in a group of characters, especially in terms of a horror film. I was drawn in immediately, and to me this movie just really got to me. There's not a lot that's shown on screen. A lot of it is behind closed doors, but you clearly know what is going on, and it's a extremely hard watch, especially since that I am pretty familiar with the case as well that this movie is based around. But yeah, the characters are phenomenal in this one, and as I was watching this movie, I genuinely felt that I was in that house with Vicky, who is the victim within this film, going through all the emotions that she was. And it's very rare that especially a horror movie does that for me. So yeah, absolutely fantastic film. If you've never seen it, highly, highly recommend it. That is Hounds of Love. And last but certainly not least, from the 2020s, this was a really easy pick for me. I'm going to go with Halloween Kills. This one definitely blew me away. I absolutely loved this film. I picked this up yesterday, by the way. It just came out a couple of days ago, and I have not watched this yet. I'll probably sit down and watch it at the weekend, because I definitely want to watch the extended cut. So looking forward to that. But yeah, I saw this in theatres last year, and it was absolutely phenomenal. I loved everything about this film. The two Johns, I loved how brutal Michael was in this film, and yeah, it was just a fantastic entry into the Halloween franchise. So yeah, this was definitely my favourite movie of the 2020s so far, and I've got to say, probably a pretty tough one to top. So yeah, that's Halloween Kills. So that does it for this video. Once again, if you're not subscribed to Tony, Horror and Todge, I'll leave a link to his channel in the description box below. Once again, Tony, thank you so much for tagging me. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to leave this open. If anyone else feels like participating in this, feel free to upload a response. And yeah, that is it for this video. So let me know what you think of my picks in the comments below. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you for watching.